Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport. The Formula 1 season is over and so it's left to me to tie up a few loose ends before 2024 comes to an end. Today we are going to be looking at every Formula 1 driver that took part in a race in 2024 and assess their season, giving them a score between F for the worst season to S for the best season. And we'll use the humble tier list to document where I think each driver should go. In 2024, there were 24 different drivers, the most in a Formula 1 season since 2017. Hopefully you won't find this list too controversial, but if you do disagree, please let me know how wrong you are in the comments and subscribe. And with that, let's jump into this Formula 1 2024 tier list. Kick Sauber. We will start our journey at the back of the Formula 1 grid, and if I had to review Kick Sauber's year, it would be lower than a triple Z in hell. Starting with the departing Valtteri Bottas. No points for the first time ever in Formula 1. He finished 22nd overall, last of all the full-time drivers, and only finishing ahead of Logan Sargent and Jack Doohan. This is by far his worst ever Formula 1 season, and now there is no place for him on the grid. It looks like he's heading back to Mercedes in a reserve driver role. It's an F-grade year for the usually competent Finn. To be fair, his teammates' year wasn't much better, and Zhou Guanyu was ahead of Bottas all year, solely on an 11th place finish in Bahrain, but he put in a really good performance in Qatar and managed to finish 8th, scoring the team's only points of the year. There were a couple of other decent drives, and out of everyone leaving Formula 1 after 2024, I feel like Zhou deserved more of a chance. He's good, but his 2 seasons with Sauber never gave him a car worthy of his actual pace. It's an E, better than Bottas, but not by much. As I said, for both of these drivers, it was less to do with them being bad and more about Sauber being in a holding pattern until Audi show up. Williams. Logan Sargent is the easiest of the 3 Williams drivers. Kicked out of the seat after the Dutch Grand Prix with no points. The only points he scored in his year and a half at Williams came in Texas in 2023. That single point was only given to Logan because Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc were disqualified. F, because losing your seat due to a lack of performance mid-season is never a good thing. Franco Colapinto replaced him for the last 9 races of the year and scored points in his second start at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. He then added another point in Texas, and after 4 Grand Prix, people were already talking about him replacing Sergio Perez at Red Bull. If that had happened, then this would have been an S-tier season. But he had several bad crashes and a tough end to the season as Williams struggled for parts. His stock is still high, and I'm certain we'll see him back, despite not having a seat for 2025. It's a D. Alexander Albon is much harder to place. I feel like he got a lot of attention after last season, and I don't know what people were expecting, but his season was not as good, and a lot of hype has cooled off. He only finished in the points at 4 races, had several accidents, and overall, it was just a worse year all round, so an E for Albon. We are still waiting for a driver to have a C+ year on this list. RB. Yuki Tsunoda was embarking on his 4th season with the Red Bull B team, and it was decent enough to keep Yuki Tsunoda in the chat for a place in the main Red Bull team alongside Max Verstappen. He is the most obvious choice in my opinion. More experience than Liam Lawson, Isaac Hadjar and Franco Colapinto. His performances weren't much worse than Sergio Perez in 2024, despite the performance advantage with the Red Bull. I think Tsunoda has been undervalued by the barely drinkable energy drink brand. This was his 2nd best year in Formula 1. He beat Daniel Ricciardo fairly comfortably, and even Liam Lawson didn't match him in his 5 appearances. It's a C-grade year for the Japanese star because there was the odd mistake, but overall it was a year where Yuki Tsunoda gave a good account of himself. In all likelihood, Daniel Ricciardo is now done with Formula 1. It was a mistake to come back after his brief stay with McLaren, but I guess RB were desperate to replace Nick de Vries. His final season was a disappointing waste, only a few points finishes and replaced after taking a fastest lap at Singapore, which caused a bit of a stink with his former employers. F-grade year for how unremarkable the mid-year exit of this 8-time Grand Prix winner played out. His replacement Liam Lawson didn't do a lot in his 6-race stint, scoring a few points but seemingly cementing a place with the team for 2025, and that alone makes it worthy of a D. Haas. I'm going to put Oliver Behrman here instead of with Ferrari because whilst he made a single appearance with the Scuderia, he did actually make 2 with Haas. And his near future is also tied with Haas. It's an A-grade year. I'll get it out of the way now. He was a surprise stand-in at Ferrari in Saudi Arabia after Carlos Sainz Jr. came down with appendicitis. The pressure of making a surprise debut with a team like Ferrari and still doing an admirable job to come home 7th is class, and secured him a seat for 2025 with Haas. He then scored a point with Haas in Azerbaijan and a decent drive to 12th at Sao Paulo. His drives in Formula 1 covered for a disappointing Formula 2 campaign, and he's going to have a bright future. Kevin Magnussen is leaving Formula 1, and much like Daniel Ricciardo, I don't think we'll see him back. Unlike Daniel Ricciardo, he has had high points since returning in 2022. But 2022 was his best year, and since then he's slipped further backwards, only scoring 16 points and finishing 15th overall in 2024. It was at best a very mediocre year, well behind teammate Nico Hülkenberg, so it's an E. Nico Hülkenberg was one of the stars of 2024, scintillating qualifying performances regularly in the top 10, and he only missed out on the first top 10 overall since 2017 by a couple of points. His move to Sauber in 2025 might seem like a sideways or even a backwards step for the German, but with Audi joining the series in 2026, it might be the move that finally propels Hülkenberg to the podium. Audi always win in the end. It's an A-grade year. Alpine. It would be insanely unfair to judge Jack Doohan and his one start too harshly. It was a quiet race and he was out of the points, but he didn't crash, he finished the race and he's been given a real opportunity for 2025. D for lack of data. Esteban Ocon had a really bad year. He only scored points at 5 races, hit his teammate at Monaco, which seemed to seal his fate with Alpine, and he was dropped for the last race entirely. This was his worst full-time season, and his falling out of favour at Alpine was plain to see. He did have a couple of high points in his favour, the second place at Brazil and getting a drive with Haas for 2025. That raises him from a certain F to a sketchy E, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was pushed out of Formula 1 if he has another bad season in 2025. Pierre Gasly was the guiding star for Alpine's 6th place in the Constructors. Yes, it helped the team got a double podium in Brazil, and it may have been luck that got them there, but Gasly scored at 9 races, including 4 of the final 5, to help secure that 6th place. Gasly himself was 10th overall, despite not scoring for the first 7 races until a single point at Monaco. Not an amazing season by any stretch, and he actually scored more points in 2023, even though he only finished 11th. But he carried Alpine to 6th, and all that extra dosh that comes with finishing that high in the team's championship, so it's a C. Aston Martin. Lance Stroll had another Lance Stroll year. Never all that impressive, had a few crashes, was absent from the top 10 for most of the year, and was even a backmarker for a big chunk of the season. 2024 is the year Lance Stroll proved you can't even trust him with a bicycle, let alone a Formula 1 car. And the only reason he is in that car instead of Brazilian Formula 2 champion Felipe Drugovich is because his daddy's paying the bills. Obviously, it's an F-grade year, because his existence on the Formula 1 grid is a detriment to all of us. Fernando Alonso, on the other hand, had a much worse year than last year, and of his 21 Formula 1 seasons, 2024 wasn't even in the top half. But he did keep Aston Martin in 5th all by himself, and with Adrian Newey joining the team, there might at least be a positive future for Alonso, who is going to be around in 2025, 24 years after his debut. I think it's going to be a D because it wasn't great, but it could have been worse. Mercedes. 2024 was Lewis Hamilton's worst season ever. He has never finished 7th in any full-time championship he has taken part in. You have to go back to his karting days to find the last time he was this low in any championship. Which is pretty incredible, but this is about his level now. Regardless of whether the move to Ferrari gives him a car that's better than the Mercedes, Hamilton will finish between 4th and 8th. That's where he is, past his prime, closer to a Formula 1 exit than the Formula 1 championship. He may have taken 2 wins, ending a near 1,000-day winless streak, but this was definitely still an F-grade year. I think Lewis would agree. He didn't seem happy, especially as the end of the season neared and performances stagnated in the midfield, with some truly poor performances which you don't normally see from Hamilton. Whilst it wasn't much better for George Russell, I think he can be happy he beat Lewis Hamilton in 2 of 3 seasons they were teammates. 2 wins in 2024, 3 if he wasn't disqualified for sweating too much at Spa. 6th overall, a bit of a mediocre season that had its definite low points, but at the end of the day he failed to score in 3 races. Australia, when he was in the points but taken out by Fernando Alonso. Britain, where he was running comfortably in the points but had a retirement due to a mechanical issue. And Spa, where he won the race but was later disqualified. He gave as good as the Mercedes would allow, and so it's a B for Russell. Red Bull. Last year, Max Verstappen would have been nailed on for an S, especially with 19 wins from 22 races. This year has not gone as smoothly, only 9 wins and a 4th championship win in a row. So yeah, it's still an A-grade year because Max Verstappen put in some world-class drives, had nearly 3 times as many points as his teammates, and yeah, he won the championship. Sergio Perez had the opposite year. He came under fire early and performances never really improved. He was given a 2-year contract extension and his performances only got worse. He struggled in qualifying, he struggled in races, he struggled to look competent at every level compared to Verstappen. He's probably done, unless Red Bull don't want to pay off the rest of his contract, which shows how daft it was giving him a new one. He actually did better in 2016 and 2017 with Force India than he did in 2024 with Red Bull. He's the sole reason they finished 3rd in the Constructors. He's had several crashes, but has just lacked pace all year. It's an F, his reputation is in the mud. After 14 years, it's likely he's finally done with Formula 1. Although he wouldn't be a bad fit for Cadillac in 2026, honestly, he should bite the bullet and take a payout to leave by mutual consent. Ferrari. What a year it was for Ferrari. Genuine title contenders, at least the Constructors' Championship, but Charles Leclerc did give it a good go in the drivers. 3 wins, 3rd place in the championship, a much more consistent Charles Leclerc making far fewer mistakes than previously. This bodes well for the future. I think he could be a strong title challenger in 2025, which could be interesting for team dynamics at Ferrari next year. There wasn't much Leclerc could have improved on. He had 1 DNF in Canada and a couple of outside the top 10 performances due to other issues. Maybe more podium finishes. He finished 4th 5 times and 5th a few times as well. Improve on those and he would have been a credible title threat around the halfway point in the championship. But if Ferrari continue to move forward and Red Bull backwards, then next year could be his year. An A-grade year for Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz Jr. was ending his time at Ferrari and heading back to the midfield with Williams. I still think this is very undeserved. He has been great for Ferrari, 2 wins in 2024 and his biggest ever points haul in his 10 Formula 1 seasons. He finished 5th but was only 2 points behind Oscar Piastri and he did miss a race earlier in the year due to illness. The only big down point was the crash with Perez in Azerbaijan and the fact Ferrari have dumped him for Hamilton. Sainz will be a loss for the team, mark my words. And him helping the Scuderia to their best season in years means he's a B-grade driver. Maybe just too far behind Leclerc to be an A. McLaren. Our final team is McLaren, the team that won their first Constructors title since 1998 when Mika Hakkinen and David Coulthard were driving. Both of those guys are now in their 50s to give you an idea of how long it's actually been. It's easy to forget that this was Oscar Piastri's 2nd season in Formula 1. He has driven like someone who's been around for years. 2 wins at the age of 23 and he finished 4th in the Drivers' Championship, helping McLaren to victory in the teams. It's been a massive year for Piastri. Results did start to drop away towards the end of the season, but it says volumes that despite this being just his 2nd season, he finished in the points at every race bar 1. He's come a long way since losing the British F4 title to Jamie Caroline in 2017. Without a doubt, it's an A-grade year. And Lando Norris finally taking that first win and following it up with 3 more, leading the charge for McLaren even when they worked against him at times. 2nd to Verstappen, but only 63 points behind. It's an incredible achievement and he is an incredible driver. Our one and only S-grade driver for 2024. All for his personal achievements as well as what McLaren as a team have achieved in 2024. So they are every Formula 1 driver for 2024 and where they go depending on what happened during the season. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. Make sure you subscribe for more Formula 1 content as well as much more coming in the next couple of weeks and 2025. Members only content available with more coming out soon. Thank you very much for watching and have a good one.